Hello. Picking up Bible study, uh, Matthew. We left off at the start of chapter 2. Let me pray for us. Holy Father, thank you for time in your word. Pray for your guidance, your direction, your understanding, and lift up those who may be watching, and pray that you would be with and comfort them. We thank you for this day in your holy name. Amen. Um, we finished uh, chapter 1, the last verse, verse 25. Joseph didn't know his wife. No, I mean, he didn't have physical relations with her. Um, and she had given birth to a son, and he called his name Jesus, Emmanuel. And now we start in chapter 2. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem, Judea, you would head Jerusalem, and then just a little bit south, about 6 miles was, or just to the south of Jerusalem was Bethlehem, which was Jerusalem was the city of the kings. So, and we'd covered the lineage of Jesus in chapter 1. It showed us lineage and authenticity of Judah in the days of Herod the king. Herod was referred to Herod the First, Herod the Great. He ruled Judea from 37 to 4 BC, and he was a ruthless guy. He murdered his wife, several sons, and relatives, anybody that threatened his leadership. So he wasn't a nice person. And behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem. Notice it doesn't say 3 wise men. That's kind of a accepted cultural thing. But what the Bible just says is wise men, and we're never really given an indication the number of them. It's kind of like when you talk about Adam and Eve, the fruit of the tree. It's always depicted as an apple, but we don't know that. The Bible just says fruit. Wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, which was the capital city, saying, "Where is he who has been born, King of the Jews?" So they were basically fulfilling a prophecy out of Numbers, which is several hundred years earlier. King of the Jews, for we saw his star when it rose. So you have this supernatural phenomenon that occurs. It's not a planet. It's not a regular star in the hemisphere. It's a particular star with like when you looked at it, you knew it was something was different about it, and have come to worship him, which would have been an appropriate response for a king. One thing about the wise men you always see depicted is the wise men traveled with a large number of attendants and guards for the long journey, which would have taken several weeks. For example, the ones that came from Babylon by the main trade route was about 800 miles. So if they were doing 20 miles a day, that trip would have taken them 40 days to get there. And from the time that Jesus is born until the wise men come is actually about 2 years. So that's another cultural acceptance that, they come while he's in the manger, but Jesus and the family were living in a house at the time. And when you think about wise men, they had a wide range of practices. They had astrology, dream interpretation, study of sacred writings, the pursuit of wisdom, magic. So, uh, yeah, when they say he saw a star, that was out of Numbers 24:17. A star shall come out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. So the Jews understood that prophecy to mean that it was pointing to the messianic deliverer. The problem is that the Jews were thinking more political and not not like religious. That Christ was going to be the end of the sacrificial system. No longer would blood be shed to atone for sins. Christ's death on the cross was going to do that. But they didn't understand that. So they started come to worship him. Verse 3. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled because he felt threatened. He didn't want somebody to take his throne from him. And all Jerusalem with him, and assembling all the chief priests and scribes of the people. So basically, in that time, they had temples, synagogues, and there would be a priest, and then the scribe would be the one that handled the writings, the words, like recording. And the priests and stuff made money through selling the sacrificial items to those who didn't have them. And so it was kind of we would say a conflict of interest, but really they didn't have a heart for God. It was basically a business. And those who came to worship, they would have to pay a temple tax. They would have to, pay so much for the 2 doves and all that stuff. So you have a Herod who's not a good person, and now he's calling these people who represent the faith or the synagogues and the temples, and he's inquiring of them where the Christ was to be born. And in your Bible, Christ should be capitalized. Yeah, when you think of the scribes, they were the guys who handled the scrolls and did the interpreting of the Old Testament and stuff. So Christ would be another way of saying the Messiah. So he's coming with the pretense that he wants to worship the Messiah, but really what he's wanting to do is kill him. Because just like when he killed his wife and kids, anybody who threatened his leadership, he would get rid of them. So we'll get to verse 5, and they told him in Bethlehem, Judea, for so it is written by the prophet. And what it's referring to is Micah 5:2. And then there is alluding to the quotation about David's coronation, and that was as king over Israel. That's in 2 Samuel 5:2. And that's one of the unique things about the Bible is you'll see stuff in the Old Testament that talks about the New Testament. Then you'll see stuff in the New Testament that refers back to the Old Testament. It's so binding because the Old Testament takes us to the need of the Messiah, and then the New Testament introduces us to the Messiah, and then how we're to live with that. So it's one of the unique things about the book, the Bible. Uh, yeah, so verse 6, and you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah. And we just read earlier, the very first verse, where was Jesus born? In Bethlehem of Judea. So, you go back. I wish I knew the exact, I've heard it said 1,000 years before that was written, or that it came to pass. It was written in Micah and in 2nd Samuel. I need to find my timeline. And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judea. For from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. So there's the indication that he's going to be the king of the Jews and that he's going to be the great shepherd. And you have to take the content of the Bible, both, culturally, socially, that time frame. So to say that a shepherd, if you had a flock of sheep at that time, there would be a man who would, and it may be some of his sons with him or workers, but depending on how big the flock was. But those sheep, that's what their protection was that shepherd. And they generally had a long staff with a hook. The hook was so that if a sheep were to fall into a crevice or in between two rocks, they could lift it up. The staff itself was if they had to, battle a wolf or a lion or bear to protect the sheep. So when you say shepherd and referring to it in the verses, it's one word, but it has an umbrella of meaning. Then in verse 7, then Herod summoned the wise men secretly and ascertained from them what time the star had appeared. So apparently, and you can only imagine that if you had such an entourage, there would have to, you would have to have been able to see them from a ways off. So Herod knew they were there. He knew they had come. And the fact that these wise men were coming to Jerusalem would have certainly would have gotten back to Herod. And so he summons for them, and they come to the court and ascertain from them what time the star had appeared. So yeah, it was considered a traveling star. So he's trying to get a timeline so he knows who he's going after. And he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, go and search diligently for the child. And when you have found him, bring me word that I too may come and worship him, which Herod had no intentions of doing. You can almost hear the hiss in his voice, the evil that's in his heart when he's saying this. And then verse 9, after listening to the king, they went on their way, and behold, the star that they had seen, when it rose, went before them until it came to rest over the place where the child was. So like I said earlier, culturally, the nativity scene is always, the baby Jesus and Mary and the trough and the wise men around, but that's not really how it unfolded. I mean, he was by 2 years old, he was considered a child. And this star physically led them from Jerusalem to Bethlehem. And when they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And you can imagine they're seeking, they're searching. They've traveled an enormous journey, and now it's in sight, and so they have that feeling of excitement. Verse 11, and going into the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they fell down and worshipped him. So they had an understanding of who this Messiah was. Then opening their treasures, they offered him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. And being warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed to their own country by another way. So, my footnotes say that it's doubtful these quasi-pagan religious men understood Jesus' divine nature, but their actions were unknowingly appropriate and wonderfully foreshadowed the worship of Jesus by all the Gentile nations. Now, it's identified gold, frankincense, and myrrh. The number of gifts contributed to the tradition that there were 3 men, but actually the number is unknown. Frankincense is resin, and it's used ceremonially for the only incense permitted on the altar. And that goes back to Exodus 30, when Moses is given direction by God on how to build a tabernacle, so that God had a dwelling place with the ark, and then you had the pieces of the tabernacle, and the significance of those we'll cover sometime. But it was like the portable temple for God was the tabernacle when the children of Israel were being led in the wilderness. Myrrh is sap used in incense and perfume as a stimulant tonic. The gifts were likely used providentially to support the family in the flight to Egypt, and that's where we'll stop here. Kind of get an idea of what we think of as the Christmas scene, but then you have this behind the scenes stuff going on, and then the wise men were touched by a dream. I don't know if it was similar to what Mary and Joseph had, but it says they were communicated to in a dream not to return to Herod, because Herod was out to kill the child. And then they departed to their own country by another way. So they went to great lengths to get away from Jerusalem and travel back to their home place. So we'll stop there, because the next section we pick up in is the flight to Egypt, where Joseph and Mary and Jesus flee to avoid Herod's rampage. He's going to kill all the firstborn children within a time frame, thinking that he's eliminated the Messiah. Yesterday was Veterans Day. I thought it was pretty cool. Chief Boots put on Facebook, listed everybody's name in the department that has served. Hats off to you, and thank you for your service. My dad retired Air Force, and my son did 6 years Air Force. but definitely appreciative to all those who stood for our freedoms. Again, if you ever have any questions, want to have a conversation, I want to Zoom and have a cup of coffee, I'm available. Y'all got my contact info. And I pray that if you're on shift watching this, you have a safe shift and get home to your families. And y'all have a great day.